Hello everyone. Today's lesson we had planned obviously to do it in the classroom, so it will need a bit of adult help today. Sorry about that, and it's also going to involve some acting. It's very much going to be a talking and listening lesson, so hopefully you'll find it quite fun. You will be helpful if you had a piece of paper and a pencil, and that's mostly for the adults today, so that you can write down some questions that the children are coming up with. And also you'll need to, so you might want to pause the video to get paper and pencil in a moment. And also this lesson is all about our story Beegu. So in a moment, pause this video if you haven't already done so you can listen to our story of Beegu. And children, make sure your adults are watching and listening too, because they will be answering some questions that you come up with. Okay, so pause now and get all your bits ready, listen to the story and come back when you're ready. Okay, hello again. Just to give you a little bit more insight into our learning this week, we're going to be thinking about what it was like for Beegu on planet Earth, because at the end of this week we're going to be imagining we're Beegu and writing postcards from planet Earth. So today is all about thinking about what it was like for Beegu and Earth, how Beegu was feeling, and we're going to come up at the end of our lesson with the answers to those questions, and we will hopefully come up with some keywords that we might use in our writing when we write our postcards. Okay, so I want you just to have a look at the question hand, which is just above my head. So children, today you're going to imagine that you are Beegu's mummy. So Beegu's mummy came to rescue Beegu from planet Earth at the end of a story. And you're going to imagine that you've rescued Beegu and you're going to ask Beegu lots of questions about what it was like on planet Earth. So adults, I hope you've been paying attention to the story as well, because adults, you are going to be Beegu and you're going to be answering your children's questions. So going back to our question hand, we've spoken about, or we've written questions before in year 1. So we know that a question ends with a question mark, which you can see on the question hand, which is above my head. So we can make a question mark in the air like this, just to practice. And then when we read a question, often we do this to show that it was a question. And our question hand just shows us some of the words we might use to start a question with. So you can say the words after me to practice them. Where, when, why, what, oh sorry, that's what, who, and how. So there's some of the words you can use to start your questions. In a moment, you're going to have a bit of a chat with children and adults, have a chat together about what sorts of questions you might ask Beegu. So if you were Beegu's mummy, what would you be asking Beegu to find out all about Beegu's time on planet Earth? And we're just going to jot down some of those questions ready for something called hot seating. So we're just going to have a bit of a brainstorm thinking about questions we could ask. Adults, if you want to write down some of the questions that you come up with together, just so you don't forget them, and that will get you ready for when you're hot seating. And that hot seating means that you're both going to pretend to be the characters in the story asking those questions. Okay, this might be a time where you pause now and just come up with lots of different questions together using some of those question words. Also, I'm going to just give you some ideas as well. So I would say pause now, or pause when I say 3, 2, 1, and then think of some questions together. So 3, 2, 1. Okay, so welcome back. Hopefully you've had a bit of time and you've come up with some questions together. If you're finding it a bit tricky, or this is normally in class where we'd share our ideas and I'd write down the questions or we'd write them together. But let's share some ideas now. You can't share them with me, but I can share some that I came up with you. So maybe you came up with a question starting with how. If not, you could think of one now. Maybe you asked, how did you feel? Okay, have a look at the questions you came up together. Did you come up with a question starting with where? Maybe you could have asked, where did you go? And that's our question, where did you go? Okay, have another think. Did you come up with a question starting with what? So you could have asked, what did you do? Or what did you see? Okay. If I've given you some ideas and you would like to ask those questions that I've come up with, adults or children, you can just write down those questions as well before you start if you'd like to steal any of my ideas. And one more question I thought of, starting with why. I'll go to this page. Okay. So, why didn't the teacher like you? Why did the teacher throw you out? Okay, and I'm sure you've thought of your own questions as well. So before we start hot seating, just make sure you've got a little list of questions that the children are going to ask. Children, if you are stuck at any time, then your grown-up can just whisper the question that you were going to ask that you've come up with during this time. So what we're going to do now is that hot seating that I told you about. So sorry about this, grown-ups, but children, I think you're going to absolutely love this. It's because you get to be Beegu. Children, you're going to be Beegu's mummy, and grown-ups, you're going to be Beegu. So you can get your chairs ready and face each other on your chairs. What we do in class sometimes is sprinkle fairy dust. We just imagine that we've got some fairy dust and we sprinkle it on ourselves so we turn into the characters. If you're not into fairy dust, that's fine. But children, you might like to actually just sprinkle some of that fairy dust on your grown-up so they turn into Beegu, and then get some on yourself so you are now Beegu. Okay, so Beegu's mummy, you're going to start asking Beegu the questions. So I'm going to say 3, 2, 1, and off you go. Pause it when I get to 1. 3, 2, 1. Okay, welcome back. I hope that went okay, and children, I hope you got some great answers from your adults. I hope you got some great answers from Beegu there. This is the time in the class where we'd all come together and we'd share our ideas. Again, it's I can't hear your ideas at the moment, but I haven't got my whiteboard and pen. Normally I'd have my whiteboard and pen, but perhaps you can just talk about some of the words that you came up with together, such as what words did Beegu use, what words did your grown-up use to describe how Beegu was feeling? So maybe you came up with scared, or lonely, or miserable. If you came up with sad, we often talk about how we can make that a more powerful word. So instead of sad, we might say that we were really miserable. And then can you think about why Beegu is miserable? Why Beegu is so lonely? Or maybe why Beegu is scared? So this is just a time to really think of those words. You might want to make a note of them, because we would normally do this in the classroom so that they're ready for when we write our postcard later in the week. Okay, and if you wanted to swap, of course you can do so. Grown-ups, you can have a go at asking the questions, and children can now be Beegu and see how you get on. Children, I bet you did a great job, and I'm sure your grown-ups did too. And that was it for our lesson today. I hope you enjoyed that, being Beegu and Beegu. I hope it makes sense. And see you for our next lesson tomorrow. Bye!